Buenos dias. I put together a compilation of videos that I've done over the last few months, all on the area of diagnosis on the spectrum. We're going to start out with talking about generally my diagnosis, then a little bit about cognitive rigidity, which is a hallmark of this on the spectrum. It's a big problem. And then a unique concept I've made up is called my discrepancy file. I don't think anyone ever talks about it, but I have a unique way of talking about that. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about trauma and mentoring and how those things can help. And then I'll do a little final summation at the end. So here we go. Hey, so I didn't mention that I was diagnosed 15 years ago, at that time, with Asperger's syndrome, high-functioning autism, and how much that late diagnosis changed my life. Because I instantly saw all of my behavior, which was quite eccentric and weird and good in many ways, but curious and funny and stupid to my children. I saw the context of it and how I just think differently. And when I saw Temple Grandin's, when I read her book, Thinking in Pictures, my staff member recommended it to me. She said, Michael, read this. You'll be bored with all the cow information, but get to the last 2 chapters and you'll understand. So I read it, and I was bored with all the cow information. But I got to the last 2 chapters, and it said, it described me. I always am so visual. I can take you back anywhere I've ever gone and give you a tour in my brain. And I don't know the names of the streets, but I can take you back. I even can take you back, it's almost 50 years now, that when I got married originally, in my honeymoon, I can take you back for the 2-month trip on the honeymoon. I have the itinerary in my head, everywhere we drove. I can even take you back to specific restaurants if they're still there. They probably changed names, but I know pretty much where they are. So I thought that everyone did that, and I didn't know that it was peculiar to me. So my diagnosis really helped me to understand that. One of the hallmarks of autism, at least high-functioning autism, is cognitive rigidity. And I suffered from that. I always say I was more Catholic than the Pope. I took everything literally. And I basically would get stuck on one way thinking, and go to the nth degree with it. Sort of like Einstein syndrome, where he could concentrate on minutia for huge amounts of time to figure out a problem, solve a problem that other people couldn't do. So for me, it's the same. I have these huge areas of special interests where I can concentrate and produce really good results. And the problem with most of us is the social end and the emotional end of the spectrum. We don't know how to deal with that part. It's not a natural element for us. We have to learn it like you would learn your vocabulary or just how to ride a bicycle. So for me, that has been awkward, to say the least. I have made many mistakes. I wrote an article called Accidental Insults, which talks about how easy it is for me to do what a 5-year-old child would do by accident in a supermarket, where they might say, oh, Mom, look at that fat lady. I can still do this. And so I've developed a modulator between here and here. Somewhere exists around here, near my discrepancy file, which I'll explain later. There's a discrepancy file here. And it's been a huge benefit, but it's taken me, I'm like the first graduate of the program that, that I've created. I need more work on this still. My children, as soon as I told them about my diagnosis, they said, "Yeah, Dad, and remember when you did this and this and this and this?" I say, okay, I got it. So it really fit right away. And that's the benefit of diagnosis, is to explain yourself to yourself and say, okay, I can change this now that I understand it. This is what I do in social situations. What are my coping mechanisms that I can develop? Can I just go in the bathroom and get some quiet time for a few minutes if it's getting overwhelming for me because of the music and the noise and the disruption? I had to do that yesterday. So it was in a men's meeting where someone was yelling, and it triggered me. So I think the awareness is the key here, is to be able to understand yourself. That's knowledge, that's power. Then you can change it. You can be, instead of a reactor, you can be an actor, as we say, and you can create what you want in your life, you know. Okay, more about diagnosis and my diagnosis. And I referred last clip to the discrepancy file. What is that? It's something I made up. It's an area over here in my brain. And what it is that kids on the spectrum, we don't measure up a lot of times. Like, it's like your sister is able to go to the prom and you weren't able to figure it out, or get a driver's license. Or in social situations, you look at your brother and you say, wow, he can talk to everyone. And this is how it developed for me. My brother moved to Las Vegas, where I lived, and he went, this is before computers, like ancient times. And he asked what bank to go to. I said, go to my bank. And so it's like one or two tellers there. And so there's really only one. And so he went to the bank, and I've been going to this bank for 5 or 6 years before him. And the next time I went to the bank, the teller says to me, oh, you're Michael, you're Jim's brother, and tells me all about my family. And I started to get really angry, like, well, Jim's got such a big mouth, I wish he would shut up, What is he talking about me for? And I realized, wow, he's here for 1 or 2 weeks, and he knows the teller in the bank. I didn't even know her name, never said, how are you, how's the weather, anything to her for 5 years. So that went in my discrepancy file. But it took many years for enough of those discrepancies to sort of, and after my diagnosis, where I was able to act on them. And when that happened was this. I was going to get a rental car on a van, and I was the only one on it with this 20-something driver who was, was in Indianapolis, and he was sort of a little bit of a hick with his, Indianapolis Colts hat on. And I'm thinking, oh God, I have this horrible critical mind, very judgmental, and I have to turn it off all the time. So I'm thinking these stupid thoughts, and I said, Michael, why don't you change what you're doing? So I decided to try to talk to him. So I said, hey, what about those Colts? Even though it made me almost throw up, because I did like the New England Patriots at the time. And he starts talking about the Colts, and I'm bored out of my mind. So I switch it to, hey, do you know about any museums in Indianapolis? And he told me about the Museum of the Southwest, which is quite amazing, actually. Southwestern art in Indianapolis, a huge museum, beautiful. So I talked to him about that, and I asked him about bicycles and bicycle paths, and we started talking about that. These are my special interests. And he told me about that, and we had this whole conversation for 10 or 15 minutes. When I stepped off that van, my self-esteem felt higher. It was a strange physical phenomena, and I realized I had done something I could never do. Okay, these are some wellness tips, and these have, there's a lot of things you can just do to change things up that contribute to your wellness, not just about exercise or just doing different things can keep your brain stimulated and your life have more meaning. So here's some ones that might be a little silly to you, but they work. So maybe have dessert before your meal. I've ordered dessert in a restaurant before I've gotten my main meal. It's really sort of nice to do once in a while. Set a timer and change what you're doing every 30 minutes. So I try to get up off this desk and do something. Go out and play with the dogs, do some gardening, or eat something, or stretch out. Okay, lay on the floor and look at the ceiling. You'd be surprised how different your brain works when you're looking at something you don't normally look at. And play some music every day, just a little bit of music, and maybe even stand up and stretch out or dance if you like. Okay, ciao for now. As a person on the spectrum, and who's also experienced trauma in my life, it's important to keep moving forward. In other words, the past can drag you down. Many kids on the spectrum encounter social problems in schools, at home, and it's easy to get for your self-esteem to make you feel like you're worthless and you can't do it. What I've learned is that I'm not unique as I think I am, and that most people have these kind of problems. I hesitate to say fake it till you make it, but we do need to do that as young people on the spectrum. We have to just go in and act as if. And then find mentors, kids who will show you the way, and other adults who are my mentor. My mentor right now is my ex-wife's mother, my mother-in-law, who died at 100 years old. And she was not a very pleasant woman when she was before 70, let's put it that way. But those last 30 years, I saw this woman transform into like Mother Teresa. She had the ability to move forward in her life and create the kind of love and compassion and understanding around her, and a really great example for my children, my daughters and my son. And I decided I need to be Mickey Carpenter, that was her name. I need to be her. I need to be her as I'm older. Be always ready to get up and move and try something new. I'll have this zest for life and this compassion and be able to talk to people and listen to them and do all these things. So as a person on the spectrum, we need to find mentors for ourselves. They're not going to just come to us. And we need to emulate the characteristics that we really like in them. It's never too late to start. You know, I'm 75, so, and I know I'm looking pretty good for 75, but I am 75. And so now I get to do this the rest of my life. So in summation, it's a complicated process because everyone is different on the spectrum and we have different sensory, social, emotional issues. And I will have another video on here about trauma because I have a lot of experience with that, trauma and dealing with that on the spectrum. But for now, these are the most important points that I think we need to deal with. And so it's really necessary for us as parents, as professionals, as people on the spectrum, to find ways to limit our cognitive rigidity and to open ourselves up to the world and experience new things. I challenge myself every day to do something new I've never done, to eat something I've never eaten, and to go places and use different streets and just challenge myself to, my printer was broken. I said, okay, I'm gonna fix this printer, and I did it. I had a problem with my computer and I just persevered to find out on Google, how can I fix it? And I did it. So those things raised my self-esteem. And in the social area, it's the same thing. I have a goal to meet new friends every week, and I do. I try to go out and arrange things I joined a new organization I'm going to tomorrow. And so it's all about challenging ourselves and not staying, inside a box, because that's what's not going to really work for us. We want to expand our understanding socially and emotionally and in the world. So ciao for now.